T-34, how the Soviet tank giant changed the course of the war. Imagine a majestic tank that not only overcomes battlefield obstacles, but also becomes a symbol of determination, courage, and engineering brilliance. The T-34 was not just a military vehicle. It was a tank that played a decisive role in the fate of World War II. Why was it called the Flying Fortress on Wheels? What lies behind this legend? When Nazi Germany launched its aggression against the Soviet Union in 1941, tanks were at the forefront of the battle. However, none of them could compare to the T-34. This tank represented a revolution in tank design and played a key role in holding off the German offensive on the Eastern Front. So, what made the T-34 so unique? The first thing that set it apart was its design and armor. Unlike other tanks of its time, engineers used a unique sloped armor design that significantly improved its protection. The tank was engineered in a way that shells would bounce off the slanted armor plates rather than penetrate them. While other tanks had thick armor that was vulnerable to shell hits, the T-34's innovative design increased its defensive efficiency. The T-34's armor was not only stronger but also lighter in weight, allowing the tank to move faster than its counterparts. This gave it greater maneuverability, which was crucial in the open terrain of the Eastern Front. The tank's powerful gun and firepower were another reason for its effectiveness. It was equipped with a 76.2mm gun capable of penetrating the armor of most German tanks, including the famous Tigers and Panthers. This was a decisive factor in battles such as the Battle of Kursk, where the T-34 was able to face off against German tanks on equal terms. Combined with its excellent maneuverability, the T-34's gun became one of the deadliest weapons on the Eastern Front. T-34's production capacity also played a significant role. In a time of war when resources were limited, the Soviet Union managed to ramp up mass production of these tanks. In 1941, only a few hundred T-34s were produced, but by 1943, Soviet industry was supplying thousands of tanks to the front. This allowed the Soviet Union to compensate for losses and continue the fight despite the harsh conditions of the war. The rapid replenishment of tank losses was one of the key reasons why the Soviet Army was able to stay afloat during the most difficult moments of the conflict. But the T-34 was not just a tank, it became a symbol of victory and resilience. It was incredibly easy to maintain, allowing Soviet crews to keep it operational even in the most extreme conditions. The T-34 was perfectly suited for combat in environments where spare parts and repair resources were limited. Its resistance to damage also became one of its most significant features. Even after shells hit its armor, the T-34 could continue fighting and return to base. Consider how quickly and effectively this tank was created. Despite the constraints of wartime resources, engineers and designers managed to create a tank that could withstand the pressure of the German forces and became one of the most mass-produced and effective tanks of its time. This mass production allowed the USSR to counter the Nazis thanks to the rapid and cost-effective manufacturing process that helped supply the front with the necessary number of tanks. Now let's look at how this tank became a symbol of victory and strength, and the role it played in the largest battles of World War II. After the T-34 was put into production, its combat effectiveness was immediately demonstrated on the front lines. One of the most famous battles in which the T-34 played a decisive role was the Battle of Stalingrad. In early 1942, as German forces advanced toward this strategically important city, the T-34 became the main means of resistance for Soviet forces. The T-34, combined with partisan warfare tactics and powerful artillery strikes, created a wall of resistance. Stalingrad became the main battleground where the tank proved its power, despite the enemy's superiority in armored vehicles. In these tough conditions, the T-34 showcased its remarkable survivability. Many Soviet tanks were knocked out, but due to its durability and maneuverability, the T-34 continued to carry out its mission. Equally important for the T-34 was the Battle of Kursk in 1943. This became the largest tank battle in history, and the T-34 showcased its best qualities. German tanks like the Panther and Tiger faced off against the Soviet T-34. Although the German tanks were more powerful in terms of armor and firepower, the T-34's maneuverability and speed allowed it to effectively confront these giants on the battlefield. The T-34 also proved its effectiveness in large-scale offensives, such as Operation Bagration in 1944. This was one of the most successful Soviet offensives, and the T-34 became one of the symbols of this victory. The surprise of the the offensives and the coordination of tank units armed with T-34s played a key role in breaking the German defense and liberating territories. But why did the T-34 become such an integral part of the Soviet victory? The answer lies in its simplicity and mass production. The Soviet Union managed to produce a large number of T-34s in a short period of time, which allowed it to not only hold off German advances, but also deliver counterattack. The T-34 was not only a fighter on the battlefield, but also an important element of strategy, allowing the Allies to weaken the Nazi army on a strategic level. In addition, its moral significance should not be underestimated. The T-34 became a symbol of resilience and determination for the Soviet forces. Every tank that rolled onto the battlefield was not just a machine, but a powerful symbol that inspired Soviet soldiers to victory. During the war, more than 40,000 T-34s were deployed on the battlefield, creating a military industry that gave the people the strength to continue fighting. One of the T-34's greatest achievements was its remarkable resistance to damage. During the war, it endured countless attacks, but its armor and fire protection often allowed the tank to return to base, even if it had been damaged in battle. But what happened when German tanks faced the T-34? Their heavy armor and guns often couldn't penetrate the T-34's armor. Many German tanks, such as the Tiger and Panther, were much slower and less maneuverable than the T-34, and this played a crucial role in numerous battles. Thus, the T-34 became not only a key element of military technology, but also a symbol of victory that had a significant impact on the course of the war. This tank made it possible for the USSR to resist the German army and deliver decisive blows in the toughest battles on the Eastern Front. The T-34 was not just a machine, it became part of a strategic plan, the foundation for numerous successes on the battlefield. In the next part, we will continue to talk about how this engineering marvel became a stumbling block for the Nazis and a key element of victory in the Great Patriotic War.
How one tank changed the Battle of Kursk, July 5, 1943, 4:30 a.m., southern sector of the Kursk salient. From the pre-dawn silence comes a thunderous roar. Flashes burst on the horizon. The largest tank battle in human history has begun. Thousands of German tanks, including the latest Tiger I models, launch a direct assault on Soviet positions. On this part of the front, the defense is thin, a battalion has been broken, and Soviet forces are retreating. Only one tank remains to cover their withdrawal. Its commander, Lieutenant Alexander Prokhorov. His crew, 4 men. The machine, a 1942 model T-34. Kursk strategic background. In July 1943, Germany initiated Operation Citadel, its final major offensive on the Eastern Front. The Kursk salient, a Soviet-held bulge into German lines, was surrounded to the north and south by Army Group Center and South. The objective, encircle and destroy up to 1.5 million Red Army troops. This is where more than 3,000 Soviet tanks clashed with nearly 2,500 German panzers. But many pivotal moments didn't happen in headquarters. They occurred in fields, woods, and valleys, like near the village of Cherkaskoye, just south of Prokhorovka. A crew that wasn't supposed to be there. Lieutenant Prokhorov's tank had orders to retreat. He had only 9 armor-piercing shells left, a cracked frontal plate, and a barely functioning radio. But after overhearing reports of incoming Tigers moving into open terrain, he made a decision to stay. If they break through here, there's nothing behind us. No one to stop them, he said, turning off the radio to avoid receiving a direct withdrawal order. The crew was experienced. The driver, Stanislav Brindin, had survived the Battle of Kharkov. The gunner, Junior Sergeant Larin, was a marksman who once destroyed a half-track at 800 meters. The loader and radio operator were younger, but already battle-tested. The tank, their vehicle, T-34/76, 1942 production, 76.2 mm F-34 main gun, hull armor up to 45 mm, turret 52 mm, max cross-country speed 35 km per hour, armor-piercing round, BR-350B, effective up to 70 mm at 500 meters. Against them, Panzerkampfwagen 6, Tiger the Furnace, 88 mm KWK 36 cannon, frontal armor, 100 to 120 mm, immune to the T-34's shell from the front. It was suicide. The calm before the storm. At 6:20 a.m., silhouettes emerged through the haze. Panthers in front, followed by 3 tigers moving on the flank toward an open ravine. If they broke through, they would strike from the side and rear. Prokhorov's T-34 stood alone in their path, and here began the engagement that would later be called one of the boldest last-stand tank actions of the war, where calculation replaced steel and instinct replaced doctrine. 6:30 a.m. Cherkaskoye sector, southern Kursk front. Dust rises as 3 German Tigers approach, flanked by infantry and 2 SD KFZ, 251 half-tracks. Prokhorov opens fire. First hit, trap the tracks. Knowing his shells can't penetrate frontal armor, Prokhorov orders, aim for the tracks, then move. The first round tears the right drive wheel off a Tiger. Its track flies off. As the German rotates its turret, the T-34 vanishes into a low hollow. The second shot hits a half-track. Explosion. German infantry scatters. Second Tiger, point-blank shot. Prokhorov maneuvers into flanking range. Distance, under 200 meters. The round slams into the turret ring seam. Penetration. The Tiger's gun stops. Crew abandons the vehicle under smoke cover. The remaining Tigers hesitate, assuming they've hit a minefield or a larger ambush. Outmaneuvered under fire. The third Tiger opens fire. First shot over the turret. Second, glances off the front plate, damaging the spotlight and jamming the driver's hat. But Prokhorov counters with an old trick. Turn, kick up dust, stop, and fire when he aims where we were. A well-timed shot hits the Tiger's engine compartment from the side. Fire erupts. The tank crew escapes in confusion. Tactical impact. In under 12 minutes, 1 T-34 disables or destroys 3 German Tigers, destroys a half-track, delays the enemy push by 90 minutes, buys enough time for reinforcements from the 71st Guards Tank Division to arrive. The German flanking assault fails. Soviet forces counterattack, pushing the front line back 3 kilometers by afternoon. The crew's fate. Prokhorov's tank survives with 2 wounded crew members and only 4 shells left. They tow the tank out by evening. 2 days later, they return to combat. Lieutenant Prokhorov was posthumously recommended for Hero of the Soviet Union. Interestingly, a German unit log from July 7th records a highly aggressive single tank disrupting southern sector lines. Myths and reality. Was it really one T-34? Yes. Soviet records confirm only 1 operational tank remained in that zone. German confirmation? Intercepted signals referenced a mobile enemy armor unit causing repeated repositioning. Why was the crew's identity lost? The regimental headquarters burned on July 8th. The account was reconstructed from neighboring crews and journal fragments. Final reflection. Sometimes the course of a great battle is not decided by numbers, not by command and not by plans, but by one man, one crew, one tank that stayed when all others left. Can a single tank change history? Or is this just a well-told story given more weight than it deserves? Let us know in the comments. This video is intended solely for educational and documentary purposes. It contains no ideology or propaganda. Clash of Titans. This isn't just a comparison of 2 tanks. This is the collision of 2 worlds, 2 philosophies, and countless lives. It's 1942. The Eastern Front is ablaze. North Africa burns. But in Western Europe, there's a tense silence. A silence before the storm. The Allies are preparing for the inevitable, the invasion of Normandy. And when that moment comes, they'll face a machine that's already become a legend or a nightmare. The PZK-PSW-6, the Tiger, first deployed near Leningrad. It met mud, ice, and the Red Army. Its first battles were a harsh test, mechanical failures, breakdowns, but when the Tiger held a firing position, death spread for miles. Its main weapon? An 88mm KWK-36 gun, originally designed as an anti-aircraft gun, but devastating against armor. Any armor. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American engineers weren't designing a wonder weapon. They were building a workhorse, the M4 Sherman. Simple, reliable, mass-produced. The philosophy was clear. Quantity is a quality of its own. Easy to repair, easy to ship, easy to drive. Designed for soldiers, not engineers. But then, when a Sherman meets a Tiger, everything changes. The numbers game. A simple fact. At 1,000 meters, the Tiger could penetrate a Sherman's armor from nearly any angle. The Sherman? To even scratch a Tiger, it had to close the distance, 400 meters, sometimes less. And it had to hit the side or the rear. British officer James Holden described it vividly. We first saw it near Villers-Bocage, a bloody monster. One Tiger stopped an entire column. We lost 7 Shermans in 15 minutes. Why? Armor. The Tiger had up to 120 millimeters of frontal armor, high-grade, non-magnetic steel. The Sherman? Just 51 millimeters. Some jumbo variants had 75 millimeters, but those were rare. Add to that, German optics, precision Zeiss sights. Tigers could accurately engage targets at over 2 kilometers. The Sherman often fired in the general direction. And then there was the problem of cost. A Tiger cost as much as 4 Shermans. Germany built 1 Tiger every 14 days. The US 7 Shermans per day. The battlefield reality. The Tiger dominated, if the fight was fair, one-on-one, in open fields. But in the hedgerows of Normandy, with narrow roads, thick forests, and tight village streets, the rules changed. American tank ace John Hill recalled, "We knew we couldn't face it head-on. We flanked, hit the sides, called in artillery, airstrikes. Sometimes we just overwhelmed it." Sherman crews had advantages too. Fast, easy to start, reliable radios. The Tiger? Heavy, noisy, prone to breakdowns, overheating, getting stuck, in mud. Shermans always rolled out with full supplies, fuel, ammo, spare parts, no problem. The Tiger depended on a fragile German supply chain, already collapsing by 1944. The psychological war. But the greatest weapon was fear. Seeing a Tiger could paralyze a Sherman crew. A mistake meant death. Sometimes, crews simply abandoned their tanks without firing a shot. German tank ace Otto Carius wrote, "When they heard our engines, they knew it was over. But when we heard the roar of their aircraft, we knew maybe it was over for us too." On open ground, the Tiger was king. In towns, in tight streets, or ambushed in forests. The hunter became the hunted. The Sherman wasn't just a tank, it was a cog in the vast machinery of Allied warfare. Infantry, artillery, aircraft, all worked together. German drivers feared one thing above all: the sky, the P-47 Thunderbolt, the flying tank. A pair of 500-pound bombs, and the mighty Tiger was nothing but burning wreckage. The Industrial War. Here's the brutal paradox. The Tiger ruled the battlefield, but it lost the war. Outnumbered, outproduced, outsustained. GIs had a dark joke. Our Sherman's on fire, but the factory's already building us a new one. German soldiers said bitterly, "We're not fighting soldiers, we're fighting the factories of Detroit." This was more than a battle of tanks. It was a battle of economies, and it decided the fate of the entire war. But there's something that history rarely tells. The stories of the men inside those machines, inside the steel, the fuel, the fire. Fog of war. Imagine, morning, thick fog, near Carentan. An American recon patrol spots silhouettes, huge, moving slow, then gone, vanished behind the hedgerows. Tigers, 1, maybe 2, hard to tell. Radios crackle, tension spikes. The Sherman Company commander gives the order, "Hold your positions, wait." Because this is the rule. If you peek out first, you die first. The Tiger could kill a Sherman from 1,200 meters. The Sherman needed to sneak within 400 meters or closer to even stand a chance. And only from the side. On open fields, the Tiger was death itself. But in the maze of Normandy hedgerows, it was a different game. Tiger crews often didn't see the threat. until it was too late. Ambushes, mines, bazookas, bombs. The Tiger was tall, massive. Turning on narrow roads took forever. If it got stuck, it was doomed, a sitting duck. American infantry adopted the tank hunter tactic: sneak close, lob grenades onto the engine deck, or call the Air Force. A P-47 Thunderbolt, a dive, a 500-pound bomb, problem solved. Not invincible. But let's be clear, when a Tiger had the right position and an experienced crew, it could destroy an entire armored column. Example, August 8, 1944, Michael Whitman's Tiger at Villers-Bocage. In 15 minutes, 11 Sherman tanks destroyed and several APCs. The issue wasn't the tank, it was the balance. Germans built the perfect tank. Perfect for what? Wide open fields? Not for a war of attrition. The Sherman wasn't perfect. It was reliable. It was repairable. It was replaceable. The fuel problem. The Tiger weighed 57 tons. The Sherman? 30. The Tiger burned 500 liters per 100 kilometers. The Sherman? 180. Refueling a Tiger in combat? A nightmare, especially with Allied bombers overhead. Tiger needed maintenance every 100 kilometers. Sherman could go 500 kilometers before major repairs. The crew's nightmare? Starting the Tiger's diesel engine, a challenge, often stalled, especially in cold. Sherman's gasoline engine started fast, even in winter. Then there's the terrifying myth that Shermans burned like tinder. It's true, that's why Germans called it Ronson. Lights every time. Ammo stored along the hull sides. A hit, ammunition cooked off. By 1944, the U.S. added wet storage racks. Fires dropped by 75%, but the reputation stuck. The Tiger was tougher. Hits didn't always knock it out, but if the engine burned or the gearbox failed, it became an immobile bunker. Fear inside steel. James Barton, an officer of the U.S. 3rd Armored Division, wrote, "When you hear the clatter of tracks and the whine of the gearbox, you know it's a Tiger, and your heart sinks." Sherman crews learned, flank it, use smoke, call in artillery, air support. The Tiger hated moving firefights. It needed to stop to aim precisely. The Sherman could fire on the move, less accurate, but mobile. Kill ratios. For every Tiger destroyed, 5 Shermans were lost. But Shermans came back, crews survived, Allied forces held the field. A knocked-out Tiger, often abandoned, towing 57 tons? Forget it. German ace Kurt Knispel said it bluntly. "We didn't fear the Sherman, we feared the Air Force. We feared running out of fuel. We feared their numbers." Machines of civilizations. The Tiger became a symbol of German engineering. The Sherman? A symbol of American industry, not just tanks, but instruments, of civilizations. The Tiger was built for a world where one master outshoots 10 amateurs. The Sherman? Built for a world where 10 amateurs overwhelm the master and win. History gave its answer. But one thing remains rarely told: the stories of the men trapped between steel and fire. Life inside the tank. Inside, tanks smell the same: oil, metal, gasoline, sweat, and fear. From the outside, they look like machines. Inside, they're coffins with people. 4 men in a Sherman, 5 in a Tiger, and every one of them wakes up asking, "Will I survive today?" The commander, the gunner, the loader, the driver, the assistant driver, or the radio operator, cramped, hot, 120 degrees in summer, freezing in winter. The Tiger? Slightly more room, thicker armor, dampened sound. The Sherman? Every shell impact rattles your bones, hits send showers of sparks. Robert Matthews, an American crewman, wrote home, When a shell hits the turret, it's like 1,000 church bells, all ringing inside your skull. Commanders in Shermans sat deep inside the turret. Tiger commanders? Higher. In a cupola. Better view. But more exposure. Pop the hatch. Risk a sniper or shrapnel. That's why most Sherman commanders stayed buttoned up. The Tiger had better periscopes. The Sherman? Simpler. Cruder. The fire you can't escape. Every tanker's worst fear. Fire. A hit, a flash, smoke. 15 seconds. Either you're out or you're dead. Fuel, oil, hydraulics, even the men themselves, burned. A July 1944 report from the 3rd Armored Division. 56% of crew casualties were from fire after penetration. The Tiger burned less often. Diesel fuel, but a direct hit to ammo, a fireball, a turret blown clean off. The smell of war. There's one thing few historians mention: the smell. Diesel, oil, gunpowder, sweat, burned metal. It soaks into your skin. It never leaves. Kurt Lemke, a Tiger driver, recalled, "You don't forget that smell. Years later, a whiff of oil and gasoline, and your body goes cold." Escape or die. The Sherman was light. Crews escaped faster. The Tiger was tall, heavy. If the hatch jammed, you didn't get out. A U.S. Army report said average escape time for a Sherman crew, 12 seconds. Tiger crew, 21. The difference between life and death. Training matters. Sherman crews trained 4 to 6 weeks. Learned to drive, shoot, support infantry. Tiger crews, 12 to 16 weeks. Complex machinery, needed to know maintenance, repairs, precision gunnery. By 1944, Germany was running out of skilled crews. New Tigers often went into battle with green recruits. A war of men. The Sherman was simple. If it broke, fix it, or wait 2 hours. A new one's coming. GIs knew, lose the tank, not the end. Survive, fight again. Tiger crews, losing the tank was the end. No replacements. That's why they fought to the last shell. If mobility was lost, the Tiger became a bunker, a fortress of steel, until the end. And it worked, for a time. When a Tiger held the line, an entire offensive could grind to a halt for days, sometimes weeks. But history shows time wasn't on their side. Every day, Detroit built more Shermans, and fewer men remained to stop them. This wasn't a war of tanks, it was a war of men, and every one of them is still there, inside the steel, inside the story. This video is intended solely for educational and documentary purposes. It contains no ideology or propaganda. When we talk about World War II, certain images instantly come to mind: armies, infantry, aviation. But there is one symbol of war that left a profound mark on history: the tank. Machines of steel, fire, and fear. Today, we will tell you about the 10 most powerful tanks of World War II. The ones that struck terror, the ones that changed battles, the ones that became legends or disasters for their creators. And we begin with a machine that, for many, became the symbol of American engineering. 10th place, M26 Pershing, USA. The American heavy tank that arrived late in the war. America's answer to the German Tigers and Panthers. Pershing appeared too late to change the outcome, but just in time to demonstrate the power of American engineering. Armor up to 102 millimeters. Gun, the powerful 90 millimeter M3. It could penetrate the front armor of a Tiger 1 from over a kilometer away. It entered the front lines in February 1945. In Cologne, a famous film captured a Pershing destroying a German Panther with a direct frontal hit. Slower than the Sherman, but far more powerful and better protected. For many U.S. tankers, It was the first time they felt, finally, a tank that can fight the Germans on equal terms. 9th place, Type 97 Chihakai, Japan. Against European giants, this tank seems light and outdated, but in its theater of war, the jungles and islands of the Pacific, it was crucial. A modernized version of the Chiha, featuring a 47mm gun and reinforced armor. In dense jungles, close combat, and limited maneuver space, it was surprisingly effective. Its role was infantry support, attacking fortifications, and dealing with light armor. Against the Sherman, it was weak, but in battles like Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, these tanks fought to the last. A tank of desperate warfare, where the will to die mattered more than the machine. 8th place, Valentine, Mark 11, UK. A British infantry tank, not impressive for size or firepower, but its main strength was reliability. From 1940 to 1944, over 8,000 Valentines were built. It was the backbone of British armored forces in the early war years. Armor up to 65mm. Initially armed with a 40mm, later upgraded to a 57mm gun. In Africa, it became a symbol of endurance, fighting Rommel and his desert foxes. Valentine often went to the most dangerous sectors, not because it was the best, but because it almost always made it. Simple, technologically sound, and extremely durable. 7th place, Panzerkampfwagen 4 AUSF, H, Germany. The workhorse of the Wehrmacht. It started the war as a medium tank, but by 1943 it had reinforced armor up to 80mm and the long-barreled 75mm KWK-40 cannon, no longer light, no longer cheap, but still the most mass-produced German tank. The Panzer IV fought everywhere: Poland, Normandy, Africa, and the Kursk salient. It was a universal soldier. It could fight Shermans, battle T-34s, and sometimes even escape an IS-2. Commanders loved its simple controls. Crews valued its balance of firepower and protection. 6th place, Sherman Firefly, UK. A regular Sherman with a British twist. Engineers made a brilliant modification, swapping the standard gun for the legendary 17-pounder, 76.2mm anti-tank cannon. The Firefly became a true Tiger and Panther hunter. It could penetrate the front armor of any German tank from 1,500 meters. In Normandy, it became a nightmare for the Luftwaffe and Panzer divisions. Its main flaw, a tall turret with a huge muzzle brake. Germans quickly learned to identify the Firefly and prioritized it as a target. Still, it became a symbol of British ingenuity. It allowed the Allies to close the technological gap with German armor. 5th place, Churchill, Mark 7, UK. This tank wasn't fast, wasn't light, but its armor became legendary. Churchill was a rolling fortress, frontal armor up to 152mm, thicker than many German heavy tanks. Its role was infantry support and breaking fortified positions, slow but relentless. Max speed, just 24 kilometers per hour. But it could cross terrain where others got stuck. It became famous in Normandy, smashing through hedgerows, ruins, and minefields. A British officer once wrote, "When artillery falls silent and infantry is pinned, that's when Churchill rolls forward." 4th place, IS-2 USSR, the IS-2, or simply Joseph Stalin. The Soviet answer to the Tigers and Panthers, a massive 122mm gun, capable of piercing any German tank or shattering a concrete bunker with a single shot. Armor up to 160mm, it entered the front in 1944. Its arrival changed the game. German tank crews called it the Beast from the East. Its downside? Slow reload, one shot every 25 seconds. But usually, one was enough. Crew of 4. This machine demanded nerves of steel and perfect coordination. The IS-2 pushed through fire, through ruins, through fear. 3rd place, Panther Aus G, Germany. the Panther. For many, the perfect balance of firepower, armor, and mobility. 75mm KWK 42 long-barreled cannon, one of the deadliest guns of the war. Armor up to 120mm, sloped at rational angles, nearly impervious from the front. Faster than the Tiger, more reliable, cheaper to build. Yet, it had a nemesis: its transmission, overheating, breakdowns, jamming, especially in early models. Still, the Panther left its mark. It became the blueprint for many post-war tanks. Second place, Tiger II, Königstiger, Germany, the King Tiger. The Allies' nightmare, a giant weighing nearly 70 tons, armor up to 180mm. The 88mm KWK-43 cannon, capable of destroying any tank from 2 kilometers away, almost invulnerable from the front, but heavy, slow, unreliable on rough terrain. There are stories of Tiger IIs becoming their own traps, bogged down in mud, breaking suspension. But on open ground, with clear sight lines, it became a machine of death. First place, T-34-85, USSR. Not the most heavily armored, not the most powerful gun, but the most influential, the most mass-produced, the most balanced. T-34-85 was the evolution of the legendary T-34. Improved armor, up to 75mm sloped, a new turret, and crucially, an 85mm cannon capable of fighting Tigers and Panthers. Top speed, 55 kilometers per hour. Light, agile, cheap to produce. This wasn't a tank for a single battle. This was a tank for the entire war. German diaries note, if you see one T-34, look for the second. If you find the second, the third isn't far, because these tanks always fought together. Conclusion: World War II wasn't won by the biggest or strongest tanks. It was won by the tanks that were there, in the right place, at the right time, in the right numbers. And what about you? Which tank is the symbol of World War II for you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion matters, to us and to thousands who care about history. Before we close this story, let's mention the machines that didn't make it into the top 10, but still left a serious mark on history. Starting with the Japanese Type 97 Chi-Ha, the main tank of the Imperial Japanese Army. Against heavy European tanks, it looked weak. 25mm armor, a modest 57mm gun. But in the jungles of Southeast Asia, it proved effective. Its strength, mobility, and simplicity. Next, the French Char B-1 bis, one of the best tanks at the start of the war. Armor up to 60mm, a powerful 75mm howitzer in the hull, and a 47mm turret gun. During the 1940 campaign, a Char B-1 could destroy multiple German tanks alone, but slow, complex, and expensive. Don't forget the British Comet, a late-war cruiser tank, 77mm gun capable of handling Panthers, speed up to 50 kilometers per hour, a good balance of firepower and mobility. Then there's an unusual giant, the German Jagdtiger, the heaviest armored fighting vehicle of World War II, 72 tons, armor up to 250mm, gun 128mm Pak 44. It could destroy any tank at over 3 kilometers, but speed of 14 kilometers per hour, frequent breakdowns, massive fuel consumption, and the Canadian Ram. Little known, but important. Its chassis was the foundation for command vehicles, self-propelled guns, and armored transports for the Canadian Army. Returning to the main tanks of the war, what made a tank truly successful? Not just thick armor, not just firepower. The key was balance, reliability, mass production, ease of maintenance. Because war isn't just duels of machines, it's logistics, repairs, the ability to produce not 10, but 10,000. That's why the T-34 became the symbol of the Eastern Front. Why the Sherman carried the burden for the U.S. Why the Panther, despite its technological edge, failed at scale. Each of these tanks reflects its nation, its time, its strategy. And today, Nearly 80 years later, looking at their silhouettes in museums, in photographs, in rare footage, we understand. This was the era of steel, the era of machines, an era that forever changed the world. So tell us, which tank is the ultimate symbol of World War II for you? Write it in the comments. We truly want to hear your view.
Maus, the most powerful but useless tank of World War II. The Maus tank is undoubtedly one of the most impressive and at the same time mysterious chapters in the history of World War II. Developed by Nazi Germany, the Maus was not just a tank, it was a symbol of the ambitions and technological experiments of the time. It was the heaviest tank ever built, and its size and armament left a lasting impression on those who faced it. The Maus project was launched in 1941 at the height of World War II, when Germany was searching for new ways to overcome the resistance of the Allies. The task facing the engineers was ambitious: to create a vehicle capable of breaking through any enemy fortifications and withstanding virtually any shell hits. To achieve this, the engineers proposed a truly extravagant design, a tank weighing 188 tons with armor up to 240 millimeters thick. The Maus was equipped with a 128 millimeter cannon capable of destroying any tank of that time at great distances. However, in order to achieve this, a suitable running gear had to be developed that could not only withstand such mass but also provide maneuverability on the battlefield. This was a true engineering challenge. To allow the tank to move, the designers had to create a powerful engine and unique transmission, which in turn required the creation of gigantic tracks and reinforced wheels. The Maus was so heavy that powerful engines and specialized chassis were needed to ensure its mobility despite its colossal size. Its armor was so thick that no existing shells at the time could penetrate it. However, despite its protection, the Maus tank faced several issues. One of the main problems was its mobility. Although the Maus was virtually invulnerable on the battlefield, its speed was extremely low and its fuel consumption was very high. Considering these factors, the strategic use of the Maus was heavily limited. The tank could have been the ideal machine for breaking through enemy defenses, but its enormous size restricted its combat effectiveness on the battlefield, especially in environments where maneuvering in tight spaces was crucial. Ultimately, while the Maus was a symbol of Nazi ambitions for superiority in armored vehicles, it turned out to be virtually useless for mass deployment. Furthermore, the production of these tanks was so complex and costly that, in the end, they were never mass-produced. Of the 150 planned vehicles, only 2 tanks were built, and none of them participated in actual battles. Nevertheless, the Maus left an important legacy in tank development, showing how far the ambitions of Nazi engineers could go. The Maus tank was part of the grand ambitions that symbolized both progress and the limitations of the engineering genius of the time. While Maus did not play a significant role in combat, its design became a foundation for future military developments, even though the machine itself was never widely used. It did not show its full potential on the battlefield, but it was a technological breakthrough nonetheless. Few people know that this giant tank contributed to the creation of more effective and modern tanks, changing approaches to armor and design solutions. Despite its tremendous firepower and protection, the Maus was cumbersome and could not maneuver like smaller tanks. This was its main flaw. Its unrealistically heavy mass and enormous tracks hindered its movement in combat conditions, where speed and maneuverability often determine the outcome of battles. For example, the Maus could not effectively move across swampy terrain or weak roads. Its speed on flat terrain did not exceed 20 kilometers per hour, which made it an easy target in fast-moving combat situations. Nevertheless, its combat capabilities should not be underestimated. It is important to note that the Maus was equipped with a 128mm gun, which allowed it to penetrate the armor of the most powerful enemies of the time. This cannon could destroy almost any tank on the battlefield from a great distance. However, even with such weaponry, its enormous size and relatively weak mobility made it vulnerable. The Maus was created to fight large enemy forces and breach defense lines by destroying crucial fortifications. But in the end, its high production cost Difficulty in operation and lack of maneuverability made it too cumbersome for the battlefield. Only 2 prototypes were built, and none of them participated in significant combat actions. Interestingly, one of the prototypes was captured by Soviet forces in 1945, and despite its heaviness and inefficiency, this tank became the subject of study and development in the USSR. In Soviet engineering labs, research was conducted, and while the Mouse was not used as a model for new designs, its development helped improve the armor and firepower of future generations of tanks. At that time, the Mouse symbolized not so much practical power as the ambitiousness of the Nazi regime in creating super powerful weapons. Its existence showed that size and firepower are not always the deciding factors. Sometimes speed, mobility, and effectiveness in real combat situations are more important than all else. Interestingly, although the Mouse was ultimately deemed too impractical for frontline battles, its project taught future generations of tank engineers the importance of finding the right balance between power and mobility, the key to success in warfare. It also became a milestone in tank construction, demonstrating that real combat characteristics are crucial, not just theoretical capabilities. Maybe the Mouse didn't play the role its creators had hoped, but its story is still an important chapter in the development of military technology during World War II, and while it remains more a symbol of engineering ambition than a real fighting force, its existence still contributed to military history.